The last thing that I'd like to show you is something called an aggregating dict. An aggregating dict either counts or sums. Now if we look at revenue.txt, I'll show that again in 1 second, and we see a file like this, how many New Jerseys are there? There are 2 companies that are in New Jersey. How many are from New York? 3. And 2 Pennsylvanias. Now, an aggregating dict would do this. Show me how many companies are in each state. That would be a counting dictionary. A summing dictionary would say, sum up the revenue from each state. If we were doing business analysis, we might want to know, what's the distribution of companies in the different states that we serve? Or what's the revenue that we're getting from each state? You know, maybe we do it by region or whatever, who knows? Show me the revenue from New York. I want to know where we should be putting our advertising dollars. Should we put it in New York or Pennsylvania? Where's our biggest revenue source? And you could do that manually. How would you do it manually? I mean, if I asked you to sum up the revenue by state, what would you do? Well, maybe you'd look at the PAs and you'd say, that's this plus this. And the New Jersey, this plus this. And the New York, this plus this plus this. And that would be easy enough. You'd probably scan through it and stuff. But that's not how we're going to do it in a dictionary. Let me explain how it's going to happen in a dictionary. For this, though, we'll just try counting. We'll count the number of times that we saw each state. Now, if I asked you to just print each state, hopefully you'd be able to do it without too much trouble. How would you print out each state? Move through the file, split the line, subscript to the second item, print that item, right? PA, NJ, NJ, NY, NY, PA, NY. Okay. Here's how a counting dictionary works, and a summing dictionary would be the same way. Here's how it works. You start with an empty dictionary. When you run into a state, you add it to the dictionary. First time you see it, you say PA equals 1. You're setting up a counter the same way we've been setting up a counter all along, except you're actually going to be setting up like multiple counters. This is the brilliance of using a dictionary like this. A key of PA and a value of 1. Then you come to the next line. You do split and subscript, you get NJ. Now you add it to the dictionary. PA is 1 and NJ is 1. Now you've got a 2-pair dictionary. You with me? You've got a dictionary that's now grown to 2 keys. PA is 1 and NJ is 1. Then you run into NJ again. You're going to need to check to see if NJ is there. And if NJ is there, you're not going to add 1 to it. I'm sorry, you're not going to add New Jersey to the dictionary because you know you can't add a new duplicate key. Instead, you're going to increment the value of 1 to 2. So now you have PA is 1 and NJ is 2, right? So PA is 1, PA is 1 and NJ is 1. That's on line 2. Line 3, PA is 1 and NJ is 2. Line 4, PA is 1, NJ is 2, and NY is 1. Line 5, you see where I'm going with it? PA is 1, NJ is 2, NY is 2. Then PA2, NJ2, NY2. And then PA2, NY2, 3. Of course, you're not re-adding all those keys. You're working with an existing dictionary. You're going to keep updating the dictionary. Let me just very quickly, I won't do all those numbers again, but let's just start with this. We're going to add PA and 1. We're going to add an NJ and 1. We're going to increment NJ to 2. We're going to add NY and 1. We're going to increment NY to 2. We're going to increment PA to 2. We're going to increment NY to 3. That's how we're going to do it. Now, it's an interesting technique that you'll also be able to apply to summing. Because if I asked you to sum up the revenue by state, you would add PA and 239.50 to your dictionary. Add NJ and 53.90 to your dictionary. Then you would reset NJ to 211 plus 53.90. You see? A running sum. So by this third line, you have PA is 239.50 and NJ is 265.40. And we have to think about how that's going to occur. How is that going to happen? We'll do it with a count first, because that's the easiest. But really, the summing dictionary will be the same. Again, these variable names are bugging me, so I'm going to call it csum. And this time around, maybe I'll just let you know that when we split a line like this and we assign it to 3 variables, it's the same as doing that subscripting that we did before. Company will be Haddad's, state will be PA, rev will be 239.50. Any questions about this? I don't want this to be, yes?
Would you have to know the fields beforehand before you assign the non-variables that's within that?
Yeah, you would. I mean, to name them meaningful, you have to know what they are, but you definitely have to know how many there were, because if you get the wrong number, it'll fail. So we need to know that this file has 3 columns. Yeah, good point. Any questions about this line? It's taking the line. What's in the line? We saw it before, right? A company, a state, and a rev value. And it's just basically splitting it and assigning it to separate variables. Does that make some sense? Mm-hmm. That's going to help us make it a little simpler in our output. All right. I'm going to need to show this to you. And
So then you don't have to do company equals 0, state equals 1.
That's right. You don't have to say company equals items 0, state equals, yeah, exactly. That's going to save us from doing that. Okay.
If you did both, would it mess it up or no?
Well, when you split, what does split usually return? Do you remember? That's the thing that we say subscript 0, subscript 1. What do you say subscript 0 and subscript 1 to? Do you remember? First item in a list. A list. Split returns a list. And when you say subscript 0, it's like, give me the first item of that list. So there would be no list. There would be no list to subscript. So you couldn't do both.
Oh.
Because you're basically distributing the list over to 3 variables. Okay, that's not so important. But questions about this so far? All right, we want to count up the states. So the key is going to be the state. Why don't we just say csum state equals 1. Let's just start with that. And at the very end, we'll print csum. And I forgot to do my ... And I forgot to do something. csumnum. I'll give you a second. This is the toughest algorithm, and so we're going to want to see how much of this we can understand, so that it's not just replication. I'm going to ask you why, if we look through the whole file, how come we only see one each of PA, NJ, and NY, when there were definitely 3 NYs, 2 NJs, and 2 PAs, yet our dictionary has only 3 keys?
Is it because the print is outside?
No, all the print is doing is printing the whole dictionary. Maybe this is obvious, but how come we don't see PA more than once if it was twice in the file? We were looping, and as we looped, we got each company. This is Haddad's, PA, and Rev 239.5. And then we said, let's make the key PA and the value 1. Then we went to the next line, right? This is a for loop, right? We went to the next line. Whatever company it is, and NJ, we said, let's say C sum NJ equals 1. Then we went to the next line. And the next one's also NJ. So now we said C sum NJ equals 1. Why are we seeing NJ only once?
Because you're repeating the same thing over and over.
We didn't count anything.
I haven't incremented it, but why are we seeing only NJ only once? I'm sorry, not the 1. We added 1, yeah, but how come we're not, this is too obvious, how come we're not seeing NJ represented in
That's
the,
what we talked about earlier, that you
can't have duplicate keys, right? So think about what's happening when we loop through this. The dict has 1 key, the dict has 2 keys, the dict has how many keys? 2 keys, just PA and NJ. In fact, what's happening is that it is overwriting the original NJ with the new value. Now, this isn't very helpful to us. So in other words, if it's PA, we say P equals 1. If it's NJ, we say NJ equals 1. If it's NJ again, we say NJ equals 1, and that gets rid of the old NJ equals 1. The dict is getting overwritten. Now, we're overwriting it with the exact same pair, so it doesn't look like anything. We just end up with PA1, NJ1, and NY1. Great. That kind of gets us started. But what we want to do, however, is we want to increment. Now let me show you what that would look like. Even though it's going to be an error, I want to show you what that would look like. Now I want you to consider what that must be. And I want you also to consider that if I say x equals 0 and I say x equals x plus 1, what's the value of x? Isn't it 1? And if I say x equals x plus 1 again, isn't it 2? Okay. X equals x plus 1. We all know that. That's incrementing. We've done it before. That's adding 1 to it and reassigning it back. Adding 1 to it and reassigning it back. So consider this. If I just said see some state, what is that going to get me? The value for state. Am I right? Whatever the state is, it's going to give me the value. And if I say see some state plus 1, it's going to give me the value of the state plus 1. And if I assign that back to see some state, I'm overwriting it. It's like saying x equals x plus 1. Because x equals x plus 1 says take the value of x, add 1, and then assign it back to x. This is saying take the value for PA, add 1 to it, and assign it back to PA. Add 1 to it, increment. PA equals PA plus 1 in the dict. That's a way to think of it. But it's a problem. And we haven't discussed this yet, and I realize I probably should discuss it earlier, but this is the time when it's most important. We get a brand new error called a key error. And this is the line. And a key error, it says key error PA. That doesn't tell us much. That's why we need to look up a key error. I'm going to tell you what a key error is. A key error is where you attempted to read a key that doesn't exist. Do you remember the index error? Remember what an index error is for? When you try to read an index that doesn't exist. You got a 3-item list and you use a subscript 5. Isn't that a problem? With a 3-item list? Subscript 5. First one's subscript 0, subscript 1, subscript 2. What's subscript 5? Index error. That's what it is. It's an index error. A key error was you attempted to read a key, in this case PA, that's not in the dict. Now why would we get that when it's in the file and we're adding it to the dict? Well, let's consider the file and the container. Container starts here. No keys, right? No keys. You open the file, look through the file line by line, each line's a string. We split the line into a list of strings, only it gets assigned to the company variable, the state variable, the rev variable. This state is PA. And then we say, let the dictionary have a key named PA and let it be equal to the value for PA plus 1. Do you see the problem?
This is an assignment. Yeah.
There is no value for PA. That's the problem, because the dictionary is empty. So when we get to the very first line of the file, and the state is PA, and we say, let's set the key PA in the dictionary. Great. We'll make it equal to what? It'll be equal to 1 plus the current value. Oops! There is no current value for PA. We can't add 1 to this because there's no current value. So what are we going to do in the last 6 minutes? Here's what we need to do, and consider this now. We can't increment the value if it doesn't have a value. Now, some folks, when I've left you to your own devices, will say, why don't I just loop through, and every time I see a state, I'll add it and make it 0, and then I'll loop through it again. That actually would work. Let's loop through the file once and build up my dictionary with every key will be 0. And then I'll have a nice dictionary that has all the keys, and then I'll loop through the file again. But I'm going to say let's stop right there, because we don't like to loop through the data source more than once. It's too inefficient. If it was a file with 5,000 lines or 50,000 lines, it would take twice as long to get through it. It's inefficient, and it's not necessary. But how are we going to add this key to the dictionary with a value when it's new, and add 1 to it when it's old? Old meaning I've seen it before. I added it to the dictionary. This is an interesting concept, and it's not that simple. But basically, if PA is new, if it's the first time I've seen it, I want to add this to the dictionary with 1. First time I saw it. So PA is 1. NJ is 1. First time I saw it. But when I see NJ again, I don't want to make it 1 anymore, because what if I said NJ equals 1 at this point? It would just be 1, and I've seen it twice now. I really want it NJ equals 2. How am I going to make it 2? I'm going to look at the current value for NJ and then add 1 to it, just like we said. So here's the trick. Sometimes the state is brand new. It hasn't been added to the dictionary. And sometimes it has been added. So I basically want to do one of two things. We're almost there. Ready? Basically this. If the state is new, meaning not in the dictionary, add it and 1, add it as key and 1 as value. Otherwise, add 1 to it. Add 1 to, let's see, add the key back with 1 plus current value. For key. Add the key again. I could just say increment. How about that? Increment. Now the question is whether I should write out the syntax for this. There is one thing that we did not find out, so I'll at least put that much syntax. I've never talked about how we could check to see if the key is in the dictionary. But I wonder if you can remember how we check to see if an item is in a set. we said if key in dict, or if key not in dict, it's going to look like this. If state not in csum. And otherwise has another name. What do we call otherwise? Else. Actually, maybe I will put the syntax in here because what I'm going to ask you to do in the homework is do a summing dictionary, which is very similar. I think we know how to add the key and one as the value. csum state equals 1. Okay. But if it is, if the state is in the dictionary, then we're going to increment it. And that was what I showed you before. csum state equals csum state plus 1. And that's it. And with that, the air conditioning stopped. And this effectively counts the number of occurrences of each state. This is another standard algorithm. It makes use of the dictionary in the other way, which is as an aggregate dictionary. Aggregating dictionary. Aggregating means group by, if you know SQL. For each unique key, collect for that key, collect for that other key, collect for that other key. In other words, it's very similar to what we've done earlier, but now we're doing it for multiple possible keys. Aggregating dictionary. And that's it. I think that's all you need. Did not review the homework. Should review the homework. I know it's time to go. Any questions about this right now? Yes?
Is there any reason why you said if state not in csum versus saying if state in csum, then do csum state is equal to csum state plus 1 and then do else csum state is equal to 1?
No, it would be the same. It would be the same. All right. I'm